Friendliness is a wonderful quality, but when it comes without boundaries, it can easily open the door to disrespect. Too often, people confuse being approachable with being endlessly available, and that is where the problem begins. When you are always smiling, always accommodating, always going out of your way to make others comfortable, people begin to assume that your time, your space, and even your opinions don't hold as much value. They stop recognizing the limits of your generosity because you never made those limits visible in the first place. Human behavior works like this. If you do not set the standard for how others should treat you, they will create one for themselves, and it is almost always one that benefits them, not you. Think about those moments when someone interrupts you mid-sentence, and instead of correcting them, you just smile and let it go. In that moment, you are signaling that your words are not as important as theirs. Or when someone takes up your time, maybe asking for constant favors, maybe dragging you into conversations you don't have the energy for, and you stay quiet because you don't want to be seen as rude. Again, you are teaching them that your boundaries are soft, maybe even non-existent. Over time, this turns into a pattern. People learn that they can step into your space without permission because you won't stop them. They learn that they can dismiss your needs because you won't speak up. And once disrespect becomes the standard, it is very difficult to undo. There is a difference between being genuinely kind and being excessively friendly to the point where you erase yourself. True kindness requires intention. It's you deciding to give respect, time, or care to someone because you believe it is deserved. Excessive friendliness, on the other hand, is reactive. It comes from a place of wanting to avoid conflict, wanting to be liked, or fearing rejection. And when people sense that, they don't see it as generosity. They see it as weakness. Unfortunately, not everyone is honorable enough to protect that weakness. Some people exploit it. They take more than they should, they ignore your comfort, and they stop seeing you as an equal. We live in a world where first impressions carry weight, and if your first impression is always about being agreeable, cheerful, and overly accommodating, you may be setting yourself up for people to underestimate you. They don't take you seriously in negotiations. They don't see you as someone with authority, and they don't consider your boundaries to be real. All of this happens not because you lack value, but because your behavior told them you would tolerate being undervalued. Respect is not just demanded through words. It is communicated through presence, through body language, through the courage to say no. If you strip all that away in the name of being friendly, then you unintentionally invite people to cross lines they shouldn't. The irony is that most people who are too friendly believe they are avoiding conflict, when in reality, they are setting themselves up for bigger conflicts down the road. When you allow small acts of disrespect to slide, they grow into larger ones. When you let someone constantly speak over you, they will eventually stop hearing you at all. When you allow someone to take advantage of your time, they will keep doing it until you finally explode with frustration, and by then, the relationship is already damaged. This cycle begins with one mistake mistaking friendliness for a substitute for boundaries. If you want others to value you, you must first show that you value yourself. That means being mindful of how much friendliness you offer and to whom. Not everyone deserves your constant smile, your constant availability, or your constant approval. Your friendliness should be something meaningful, not something automatic. When you attach it to boundaries, when you decide who earns your openness and who does not, it becomes powerful. But when it is limitless, it loses all weight and with it, your respect. Saying yes too often is one of the fastest ways to lose control of your time, your energy, and even your identity. Every time you say yes when you really want to say no, you are teaching people something about you. You are telling them that your needs can wait, that their priorities matter more than yours, and that your boundaries are flexible. Over time, this creates a pattern, and people begin to expect that your yes is always available, no matter what. They stop asking out of respect and start assuming out of habit, and what started as a simple act of friendliness or helpfulness transforms into a constant drain on your life. Most people don't even notice how often they are doing this. It happens in small, everyday situations. A coworker asks if you can stay late to help with their project, and though you are exhausted, you nod and say yes. A friend asks for a ride, even though it means rearranging your entire schedule, and again you say yes. Someone wants your time, your attention, your effort, and instead of weighing whether you actually want to give it, the automatic response comes out, yes. On the surface, it feels like you are being supportive or kind, but beneath it, you are building a reputation for being someone who can always be relied on to give, whether you have the energy to or not. What people often forget is that every yes you give to someone else is a no you are giving to yourself. A no to rest, a no to personal goals, a no to protecting your own peace of mind. And while it may not seem damaging in isolated moments, the accumulation of these yeses leads to burnout, resentment, and a loss of self-respect. People will continue to pile requests on you because you have trained them to expect compliance. They are not necessarily trying to exploit you, but they will take advantage of the pattern you created. Human nature is opportunistic. If you are always the one willing to sacrifice, others will gladly let you. Saying yes too often also changes the way people perceive your value. When your time and energy are available to everyone, they start to feel less special. Think about it this way. If something is rare, people cherish it, but if something is always on hand, it's taken for granted. When you say yes to everything, your yes loses its weight. People stop appreciating it because they no longer see it as a gift. They see it as a given. And that shift quietly erodes respect. Instead of being admired for your kindness, you are labeled as someone who can be used, someone who is too agreeable to push back. The deeper issue behind saying yes too often is often tied to fear. Fear of being disliked, fear of disappointing others, fear of conflict. Many people convince themselves that saying yes will keep relationships smooth, but what it really does is create unbalanced relationships built on compliance instead of mutual respect. True respect comes when people understand that your time has limits and your yes has meaning. Without that, you are not seen as an equal. You are seen as a resource. Breaking free from this pattern requires awareness. The next time someone asks something of you, pause before responding. Ask yourself if this yes aligns with your values, your priorities, and your well-being. If it doesn't, then giving it will only harm you, and ultimately, it will harm the relationship too. Because a yes rooted in resentment is not genuine help. It's quiet self-betrayal. Every time you give a reluctant yes, you chip away at your own boundaries, and each chip makes it easier for people to take more. When you recognize that saying yes too often trains people to expect your compliance, you start to see the importance of balance. Yes can be powerful when it is chosen with intention, but if it is automatic, it becomes a habit that others will use against you, whether they realize it or not. Kindness and over-friendliness may look similar on the surface, but they come from very different places and create very different outcomes. Kindness is a deliberate act. It is strength. It is generosity given with intention, and it has boundaries built into it. Over-friendliness, on the other hand, is usually rooted in fear. It is not about giving freely. It is about protecting yourself from judgment, rejection, or conflict. And when your actions are guided by fear rather than strength, people can sense it. They may not always put it into words, but they recognize the difference. When you are truly kind, you are making a conscious choice to show compassion, respect, or patience. You are doing it because it aligns with your values, not because you feel forced into it. That makes it powerful, and it makes people trust your intentions. Over-friendliness, however, is not a choice. It is often a reflex. It shows up in the nervous laugh, the exaggerated politeness, the constant nodding even when you disagree. It is a behavior driven by the desire to keep everyone happy, no matter the cost to yourself. The problem is that when friendliness becomes a shield, it no longer communicates strength. It communicates insecurity. Fear-based friendliness shows up in the moments when you ignore your own discomfort just to avoid saying no. It appears when you downplay your own needs so no one thinks you are difficult. It shows up when you apologize too much for things that don't require an apology. These behaviors may look harmless, but over time they strip you of your authority. People stop viewing you as someone with a strong voice, and instead see you as someone who can easily be persuaded or overlooked. They don't respect the friendliness, they exploit it. Kindness, by contrast, commands respect because it is intentional. When you are kind, you are also capable of saying no. You are capable of being firm. You can be warm and approachable, but you can also set clear boundaries. That balance is what makes kindness a strength. It is not about pleasing everyone. It is about treating people with fairness and dignity while still honoring yourself. People notice when your kindness is real. They feel it, they trust it, and they do not confuse it with weakness. Over-friendliness comes from fear of rejection, but here's the truth. Rejection will happen no matter what. No amount of constant smiling, agreeing, or accommodating will protect you from it. In fact, being too friendly often attracts the very thing you fear, because people sense that your friendliness is not genuine. They may not consciously label it, but they instinctively know you are more concerned with being liked than being respected. And when respect is lost, the foundation of any healthy relationship, whether professional or personal, crumbles. It is important to understand that kindness requires courage. It takes courage to show compassion when it is easier to look away. It takes courage to extend help without expecting anything in return. It takes courage to be patient with someone who is difficult. Over-friendliness requires no courage. It is the safer option, the path of least resistance. It is easier to nod, smile, and give in than it is to stand firm and risk conflict. But easy choices rarely lead to strong outcomes. When you operate out of kindness, you know when to step forward and when to step back. You know when to give and when to withhold. You are not afraid of disappointing someone if it means staying true to yourself. That balance is what makes kindness respected. Over-friendliness lacks that balance, and without it, people begin to see you not as kind, but as desperate for approval. The distinction between the two matters because it determines how people will treat you. If they see strength in your kindness, they will respect you. If they sense fear in your over-friendliness, they will test you, push your limits, and sometimes dismiss you altogether. The choice between kindness and over-friendliness is really a choice between strength and fear, and the impact of that choice will shape every interaction you have. Your energy is one of the most valuable resources you have, and yet so many people treat it as if it were limitless. The truth is, every conversation you engage in, every favor you agree to, every bit of attention you give away costs you something. It costs you time, focus, and emotional capacity. Thinking of your energy as currency is the most accurate way to understand its value. Just as you would not throw money at every single request or impulse, you should not hand over your energy without thought. Each yes you give, each smile you force, each moment you dedicate to someone else is like spending from a limited account. And if you are not careful, you will find yourself drained and bankrupt. Most people don't notice the slow leak until it becomes overwhelming. You might wake up one day wondering why you feel exhausted, why your motivation has disappeared, or why you have no space left for the things that actually matter to you. The answer is often simple. You've been giving away your energy to people, tasks, and situations that didn't deserve it. You invested in others' comfort at the expense of your own well-being. Unlike money, which you can work harder to earn back, energy is finite each day. Once it is gone, it is gone. And if you are constantly letting others decide how to spend it, you are no longer in control of your own life. The way you spend your energy also shapes how others perceive you. If you make yourself endlessly available, people begin to expect it. If you respond to every message instantly, they assume you have nothing more important to do. If you agree to every request, they conclude that your time must not be very valuable. The less value you place on your own energy, the less value others will place on it as well. But when you start treating your energy like the limited resource it is, guarding it, budgeting it, and spending it with intention, people notice. They begin to respect your time, your boundaries, and your presence because they see that you respect it yourself. This isn't about being selfish, it's about being strategic. Just like financial investments, energy investments should be made with care. Ask yourself who or what gives you a return. Spending your energy on people who uplift you, inspire you, or support you is a wise investment. Spending it on those who drain you, disrespect you, or take without giving back is the equivalent of throwing money into a hole. It may keep the peace temporarily, but it leaves you with nothing to show for it. And when your energy is gone, you can't show up fully for the things and people that actually matter. Another important truth about energy as currency is that it creates boundaries naturally. When you begin to budget your energy, you automatically become selective about where it goes. You start to pause before saying yes. You begin to notice when someone is taking too much and offering too little in return. You become conscious of how each interaction makes you feel. Do you walk away feeling drained or energized? That awareness helps you protect yourself from unnecessary depletion. People who respect your boundaries will understand. Those who don't will push back, and in that pushback, you will see who values you for more than just what you can give. When you frame your energy as currency, you also start recognizing the importance of saving some for yourself. Too many people pour everything they have into others and leave nothing in reserve. But just as you would never empty your bank account completely, you should never empty yourself for the sake of others' approval. Holding energy back for your own growth, your own rest, and your own goals is not selfish, it's survival. It ensures that when you do give, your giving is intentional, powerful, and sustainable, rather than forced, resentful, or empty. Thinking of energy as currency shifts your perspective in every interaction. It makes you realize that not everyone deserves your time. Not every situation deserves your effort. Not every relationship deserves your constant availability. Your energy is a form of wealth, and like all wealth, it should be managed wisely. Those who treat it recklessly end up depleted and unappreciated, while those who guard it carefully build lives filled with purpose, respect, and balance. Boundaries are often misunderstood as barriers, as if they are walls meant to keep people out. But that is not the reality. Boundaries are not about rejection. They are about clarity. They are doors, and like any door, you decide who gets access, how far they can come in, and when it is time for them to step back. People often fear setting boundaries because they worry it will make them look unkind, selfish, or distant. In truth, the opposite happens. When you establish clear boundaries, you earn respect. People may not always like your limits, but they will learn to value you for having them. Boundaries communicate self-respect. They are your way of saying, I value my time, my energy, and my space. Without them, others are left to guess where your limits are, and human nature often pushes those limits further and further. Think about a workplace scenario. If you never clarify that you cannot take on additional projects beyond your workload, chances are you will end up carrying the burden of others. At first, it may look like you are being helpful, but over time, it creates an unspoken expectation. Your silence becomes permission. On the other hand, if you establish that your plate is full and that you will not compromise the quality of your work by overloading yourself, you are making a boundary clear. That clarity commands respect, because people now understand you are not afraid to protect your capacity. Boundaries are also essential in relationships. Too much friendliness without limits can blur the line between support and sacrifice. Maybe you have a friend who constantly vents their problems, but never asks about yours. Without a boundary, that relationship becomes one-sided, leaving you drained and unacknowledged. By setting a boundary, whether by limiting the time you spend in those conversations or by gently pointing out the imbalance, you are not rejecting the person. You are simply demanding reciprocity. That balance strengthens the relationship rather than weakens it, because respect grows when people know what you will and will not accept. Many people avoid setting boundaries because they fear rejection, but here is the truth. Boundaries do not push the right people away. They filter out the wrong ones. Those who care for you, value you, and respect you will honor your limits. They may not always agree, but they will adjust because they recognize your worth. Those who resist, manipulate, or guilt trip you for having boundaries are the ones who benefited from your lack of them. And in that resistance, you gain clarity on who truly deserves access to your life. Boundaries act as a test of character, not just for you, but for those around you. The presence of boundaries also changes how others interpret your kindness. When your yes is not automatic, it becomes meaningful. When you say yes after having considered your own needs, people understand it is genuine. They value it more because they know it is not driven by fear or obligation, but by choice. Contrast that with someone who always agrees to everything. Their yes loses weight, their effort becomes invisible, and they often end up resentful. By defining your limits, you give your kindness more strength and significance. Boundaries are not about being unapproachable. They are about creating structure in your interactions. Just as a home without doors would feel chaotic and unsafe, a life without boundaries leaves you vulnerable to intrusion. By installing doors, you create safety, order, and control over who enters your space and when. Boundaries are not a rejection of others, they are an affirmation of yourself. They ensure that when you do engage, you do so with intention, confidence, and mutual respect. Ultimately, boundaries are an expression of clarity. They tell the world, this is who I am, this is what I allow, and this is how I expect to be treated. That clarity does not isolate you. It elevates you. It doesn't push people away. It attracts the right ones closer, while making sure the wrong ones never get too far inside. Seeking approval is one of the most exhausting habits a person can develop, because it puts your sense of worth in someone else's hands. Every time you bend your opinions, soften your voice, or force a smile just to be accepted, you are telling yourself that their validation matters more than your authenticity. The problem with this is simple. Approval is fleeting. What wins someone's favor today may not win it tomorrow, because people's expectations are constantly shifting. If you live your life chasing approval, you will always be adjusting, always second guessing, always unsure of who you really are. Respect, on the other hand, does not require constant bending. Respect is earned when you stand firm in who you are and refuse to compromise your values just to please others. When you chase approval, you give away control. You hand others the power to define your worth. One person's praise lifts you up, while another person's criticism tears you down. Your self-esteem becomes a roller coaster, rising and falling with the opinions of those around you. But when you choose respect over approval, you anchor yourself in something stronger. Respect doesn't come from being agreeable. It comes from being consistent, reliable, and confident. People may not always like you, but they will recognize that you mean what you say and that your boundaries cannot be pushed aside. Think about the people you admire most. Are they admired because they constantly sought to please everyone? Or are they admired because they stood for something, even when it wasn't popular? Leaders, mentors, and individuals who leave lasting impressions do so because they command respect, not because they chased approval. Approval fades quickly, but respect endures because it is built on integrity and strength. The need for approval often pushes people into patterns of over-friendliness, over-apologizing, and over-giving. You say yes when you mean no. You laugh at jokes you don't find funny. You silence your real opinions because you're afraid of conflict. These patterns may create temporary harmony, but they build long-term resentment. Over time, people stop seeing you as someone with a voice and start seeing you as someone who exists to make others comfortable. That is not respect, that is compliance. And compliance is not a foundation for strong relationships, whether personal or professional. Respect requires the courage to be disliked. It requires the ability to say no without guilt, to hold your ground even when it makes others uncomfortable. At first, this feels risky because people who are used to your compliance may push back. They may accuse you of being cold, distant, or arrogant. But those reactions reveal more about them than about you. People who respect you will accept your boundaries, even if it disappoints them. People who only valued you for your compliance will show their true colors when they realize you are no longer available to meet every demand. It is also important to understand that approval has no standard. Different people want different things from you, and often those desires will conflict. One person may want you to be louder, while another wants you to be quieter. One may want you to be more available, while another prefers you to keep your distance. You cannot satisfy everyone because everyone's version of acceptable is different. The more you chase approval, the more you stretch yourself thin, trying to be everything to everyone. Respect, however, has a universal standard. It comes from authenticity, boundaries, and strength. When you stand firm in those, you may not win everyone's approval, but you will command the kind of respect that matters. When you stop seeking approval, you begin to carry yourself differently. Your words hold weight because they are not watered down. Your kindness feels real because it is not forced. Your no becomes powerful because it is not followed by guilt or apology. People notice when you are no longer begging for their acceptance, and ironically, that is when you often gain more of it. Approval given to someone who does not need it feels genuine, But the moment you start chasing it, you undermine your own value. Respect is the true currency of meaningful relationships, and it is earned not by pleasing everyone, but by showing up as yourself, unapologetically and consistently. We live in a world that often confuses kindness with weakness, friendliness with availability, and approval with worth. But the truth is, the more you give yourself away without limits, the more people will take and the less respect you will command. Being approachable, warm, and compassionate is a strength, but only when it is paired with boundaries. Without boundaries, your yes means nothing, your time loses value, and your presence is taken for granted. The reality is simple. Not everyone deserves your constant smile, your endless yes, or your unguarded trust. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow. If you allow disrespect, it will continue. If you allow your energy to be drained, it will be drained. But the moment you decide to stop being too friendly, to say no when necessary, and to hold your ground without apology, you shift the balance. People may not always like it, but they will respect it. The choice is yours. Continue giving away your worth in exchange for fleeting approval, or step into the strength that comes from clarity, boundaries, and self-respect. One leads to exhaustion, the other leads to power.